Hello, dear participants of today's discussion in the Hindu editorial analysis. Today, we are going to deal with some important informations that are there in the newspaper, The Hindu. There are some selected informations of the news that we are going to deal with, and the first one is going to see that how the satellite launched by the ISRO in the form of the SSLV has performed, and the second one will be an eye on the Commonwealth Games 2020-22, and especially the boxing where female or the women candidates got medal, and there are some inspiring stories. Next is US, China, Taiwan, and the Pelosi's visit and its value or the meaning for the world. And the last would be the mapping of the Indian democracy and the Independence Day. So let's start with the first discussion. You see, there is a satellite launch, and it is known as SSLV. There are some informations that you really put to have in your notebook, and it surely is going to appear in your examination, any competitive examination. What is SSLV? What is ISRO? Apart from that, we need to know another launched orbit, another launched vehicles that were launched by ISRO. So the first thing is satellite launched by SSLV in wrong orbit, not usable. This is the statement of ISRO chief, and it was just stated on the Twitter handle. You see, launch vehicle put them in elliptical, not in circular orbit. There are some scientific things that we really need to know. First, we are coming on the issue that what is SSLV and what is ISRO. You see, the Indian Space Research Organization. This is the full form of the ISRO, and small satellite launch vehicle is the full form of the SSLV. So ISRO has launched SSLV, that was the small satellite launch vehicle, for coming up in the market of the launching as it did in PSLV. जो आपको ये PSLV इसमें दूसरे में दिख रहा है, like polar satellite launch vehicle. So there is a big market of launching satellite, and it really affects nation's economy. बहुत सारे mediums हैं where we can see that economic condition and the technological condition of the country depends solely on that. So this is one of the maiden approach of ISRO. ISRO wanted to launch a small satellite vehicle through which it can launch several satellites to use. You know, satellites, rocket and the satellite are very important for the development of the country or the development of the world, basically for the informations. Like we use weather information by the satellite. We use many forecastings, and now the forecasting of the weather is very unique and very static or near to the uh, reality or the near to the real approach of the weather. So this is only possible because the satellite. So ISRO has uh, started SSLV D1. कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन आपको मैंने बोला था कि जरूरी है, जैसे कि the full form of the ISRO, that is Indian Space Organization. Second one is SSLV, that is a small satellite launch vehicle. इसके बीच इसके बारे में आपने न्यूज़ में सुन लिया होगा कि ये फेल हो चुका है, बट डू यू रियली थिंक इट इज़ फेल्ड? बिकॉज ISRO has not said it is failed. It did some of the works, because there are three steps for launching a rocket or satellite. First step was correct, second step was correct, and third step was also correct. ये जो तीन स्टेप होते हैं, ये तीन के तीनों स्टेप करेक्ट थे। लेकिन दिक्कत कहाँ से आनी शुरू हुई? when it was in its orbit। जैसे कि इसमें अगर आप देखें कि इलिप्टिकल और सर्कुलर दो चीज़ें इस्तेमाल की गई हैं ऑर्बिट के लिए। तो जब कोई सैटेलाइट लॉन्च होता है तो उसको अर्थ के एक ऑर्बिट में पहुंचना होता है। इट हैज़ a particular destination to reach, and the destination of SSLV that was launched on Saturday, जो सैटरडे को सुबह सुबह लॉन्च किया गया था, उसका डेस्टिनेशन था 356 किमी सर्कुलर ऑर्बिट। ये कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन है, आप नोट कर सकते हैं। लेकिन when it reached towards the third step, then it launched 356 into 76 kilometers, and that 76 kilometers made it elliptical. Elliptical क्या होता है? It is not the circular, it is जैसे वृत्ताकार होता है, that is rounded, that the extra round for one side, so it is elliptical. You can see that जिस हिंदी में इसको वृत्ताकार बोलते हैं, and it should be the circular one like 356. So this data is very useful to record, and to also know that what was the Twitter handle of the ISRO. You see, on Twitter handle this statement is launched on Sunday. SSLV D1, that was the maiden or the first launch, placed the satellite into 356 into 76 km elliptical orbit instead of the 356 km circular orbit. Satellites are no longer usable. The statement that satellites are no longer usable, it means the logic or the data is data that should come from the satellite is not possible. Issue is reasonably identified. Failure of the logic. अभी आपको थोड़ी चीजें और जाननी होंगी कि what is the logic in rocket science. So the failure of the logic to identify the sensor failure and go for a salvage action caused the deviation. So what is this deviation in fact? How shall you know it? And on this official Twitter handle, the chairman of the ISRO, like S. Somnath, name is very important to know because there are some informations that are rounded and also important for your examination too. So this is also said that next the detailed statement will be uploaded soon. ये बात बोली गई ट्विटर हैंडल पर। दूसरी बात हमें ये जानना है कि हाउ मेनी satellites were there on this SSLV. So there were two satellites. First was EOS-2, Earth Observation Satellite, and the second was Scope Passenger, that was Ajadi SAT. You see, Ajadi SAT was very magnificent because it was completed by 75 different payloads, and it was completed by few selected girls students of different rural regions across the country. And one more thing, after so-called failure of this satellite, there is a hope that ISRO said that though this is the failure because this is the first one, but ISRO will come back soon with SSLV D2. It means SSLV D1 that was placed is not usable now, but ISRO is not losing its hope as it did in earlier. it is coming with SSLV D2 with the complete data analysis of its loss of logic. मैंने कहा था आपको लॉजिक समझने की जरूरत है, तो लॉजिक क्या है? लॉजिक इज इन फैक्ट अ transformation of the data from the satellite to the required area where it is settled. And when the data is tempered, when data is not coming, then it is said that there is logic, or the sensor or the sensor is not working in the orbit or in the satellite. Now coming on the few more things, you see SSLV satellite launched by SSLV in a wrong orbit. तो इसमें दो तीन चीजें आपको समझने की जरूरत है. रॉन्ग ऑर्बिट क्या है? दैट इज एलिप्टिकल ऑर्बिट एंड इट शुड बी ऑन द सर्कुलर ऑर्बिट. इट इज नोन एज डेटा लॉस. इसको एक डेटा लॉस के नाम से भी जाना जाता है, बिकॉज as I said that there is a logic failure. One more thing, we need to know some history of ISRO, where it has started with the launching of the rocket and the satellite. So you know that as I said that there is polar satellite launch vehicle that is beautifully known as, that is famous and renownable PSLV. And the first launch of the PSLV was failed, but it has created a history when it took a lot of satellites of the world in 2017 and 2000 by it took 70 it took 39 consecutively successful missions by June 2017. तो ये एक बात है कि PSLV का पहला जो लॉन्च था वो फेल हुआ था, बट यू सी दैट we reached on Chandrayaan 1 was just completed by PSLV. The first successful launch on Mars, it was also completed by PSLV. So we need not to get hopeless. There will be next launch of SSLV D2 in future, hope so. Apart from these things, what we really need to know, we need to know the meaning of the ISRO, as I said, and this is Indian Space Organization. We need to know that what is the full form of SSLV, that is small satellite launch vehicle, and it was performed by the rocket for the rocket market. And the full form of this launch was SSLV D1. So SSLV D1 is about to come, and the wrong orbit, like elliptical, like elliptical, sorry for the wrong pronunciation, elliptical and the circular orbit. We know that it's a range, and there is some history of the satellite like PSLV, like GSLV, like so these two satellites vehicles were also failed, but they created history, as we know. So these are the things that we need to consider of and to have. एक और खास चीज इसमें जान की, जो आज़ादी सैटेलाइट रही है उसमें 75 डिफरेंट पेलोड्स रहे हैं. पेलोड्स क्या होता है? पेलोड्स इज अ टाइप ऑफ मिसाइल और सम टाइप्स ऑफ द सम इंफॉर्मेटिव टेक्नोलॉजिकल मेजरमेंट्स जो कि डिफरेंट टाइप्स के इंफॉर्मेशन को प्रोवाइड करवाते हैं. सो ये वेइंग अराउंड 50 ग्राम्स, एक 50 ग्राम्स का होता था. 75 डिफरेंट पेलोड्स इसमें थे जो कि तैयार किया गया था. गर्ल्स फ्रॉम रूरल रीजन्स अक्रॉस द कंट्री. तो these are the things that we can note it down. Now coming towards the next information, and that is 22nd Birmingham Commonwealth Games or 2020-22 स्पेशली फॉर द बॉक्सिंग एंड इंडिया. इसमें मैं एक बात बताऊं कि जो अभी कॉमनवेल्थ गेम हो रहा है बर्मिंघम में, इसको 22nd बर्मिंघम गेम भी बोला जाता है, क्योंकि दिस इज द 22nd नंबर ऑफ the games, and it is also known as Birmingham 2020-22 games. It is also well known as Commonwealth Games. So we are just going to heat that what are the perform we will come with the complete games medals, but today we are going to see what are the performance of boxing in this game. You see, apart from ranging or counting the number of the gold medals, this story is, or this information is very motivational, especially the story of the Nikhat. The story of the Niket is very important, and how someone can perform under the pressure, someone can perform with some motive and motivation. You see, there are three winners: Nikat, Nitu, Fungal, delivered the golden punch. They are the news is talking about the boxing. Nitu and Pangal got their golden on Saturday, or gold on the Saturday, but Nikat got gold on the Sunday. So you see, the three boxers broke no resistance during their summit classes. Nikat, why I'm talking about, or I have selected this news because this is the story of the Nikat Zareen. Nikat Zareen, when Nikat Zareen was about to participate in her boxing bout, and she missed her mother's birthday. Her mother's birthday was also there on August 3, and Nikat wanted to participate in that, but she couldn't because of her game. So she wanted to give some gift to her mother, and when she was fighting, she said that she made her mind to compensate for her absence by handing the best gift to her mother, Parveen Sultana. जो परवीन her the name of her mother is Parveen Sultana, and she said that she wanted to give her best gift of her lifetime to by getting the best performance. So she after winning the gold medal, she said that I don't think that anything will make her happier than this. Nikat said, pointing towards the gold medals, and this is really the best thing. And she got this gold prize in the 50 kg light final by 5-1, and her win is not normal. She won by 5-0 against the Northern Ireland's Carly McNall. When someone is winning and winning by such a glorious performance, and she might be happy that she can manage and compensate uh, what she said, that she will compensate her absence by winning or giving the best gift. So this is all. And one more thing is that she paint her nail, and you see, painted with the she painted her nail with the color of the Indian national flag. So this is something that you show when she people saw her nail, and it was also painted with the national color flag. This is something that is taking the heart of the nation. Another two youngsters who got the gold medal, and it was started by the Neetu, uh, and this was her first gold, and she has initiated the gold, the winning the gold in boxing, and second one was by Amit Pangal. So this is the important news for uh, the boxing, that now boxing is on the peak, that it has started to get gold in such international pride on such international games. Now, moving towards the next important information, then that is international information. The visit of the Pelosi's and the state of the US, China, and the Taiwan. It is really interesting to see on international ground the aggressive move of the China. You see, as you might have seen the news, that China is making explosion on the area on the water area of the Taiwan, and the silent response of Taiwan. So, and the approach of US and its incidents. So, the cooling the temperature, the US, China, Taiwan are left picking up the pieces after Nancy Pelosi's visit. You see, there are three things that we really need to understand in this article. First, uh, the clash between China and Taiwan. China and Taiwan are just facing struggles for uh, their borders, and China was trying to instigate Taiwan, but and it also wanted to trigger the escalation. But Taiwan was very silent, and it has not involved in the war. And in between uh, the interrogation, or in between the step of the US and the visit of the Nancy Pelosi to the Taiwan, really made a significant things in international politics. First, the military of the China has took its steps back. The US has tried to convince the world, and China said this is like the hollowing out. This is like the hollowing out its commitment to one China policy, because China wants or the Beijing wants one China, and there is some policy between the US and China. And when Nancy Pelosi visited to Taiwan to represent a peace, or you can say to represent US and its relationship with the Taiwan, then China finds it really disturbing. And one thing happened: the war is settled down. The war is the expected war that was there is not escalation on its escalation. ये बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं हो रहा है, लेकिन अब एक खास चीज जो इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स में आई है, द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन द चाइना एंड यूएस. तो इट वाज ऑलरेडी इन डिफिकल्ट फेज. It was scattered. Now both the nation, which are the biggest power in the world, are again at the worst of the clashes. So इस पूरे के पूरे आप consequence को अगर देखते हैं तो then what is the future of the Taiwan? The future of the Taiwan is still what it was. There is nothing. There is nothing that came out from the visit of the physically. There is nothing that came out from the visit of the Nancy Pelosi, but it had cooled the war between Taiwan and China. Second thing, it has also raised the issues of the relationship between the US and Taiwan. जो US और ताइवान का जो रिलेशनशिप है उसमें क्या आगे होने वाला है, क्योंकि एक बड़ी अच्छी सी लाइन है इसमें कहा गया है कि the US and Taiwan are left picking up the pieces आफ्टर नेंसिस विजिट. अब ये जो पीसेस है वो कौन सा ऐसा पीसेस है, इसी अगर इसको हम यहाँ पर देखें, बीजिंग एंड वॉशिंगटन मीनवाइल आर लेफ्ट पिकिंग अप द पीसेस ऑफ एन ऑलरेडी स्ट्रेन्ड रिलेशनशिप. जो इनका स्ट्रेन्ड रिलेशनशिप है, इनफैक्ट ताइवान इज ऑन इट्स नेचुरल कंडीशन, बट the relationship and the international relationship between the Washington and China is on the verge again. तो ये इसका part है. Now you can see a statement of the Beijing where Beijing like you see Beijing last week said it will cut off military channels with Washington by cancelling three key dialogue meanwhile mechanism that too at the time of the heightened military tension. जो वाशिंगटन और चाइना के बीच में मिलिट्री correlations थे उसको उसने hold कर दिया. Now China is not moving, and it said that war. It said it is uh, too important to be left to the generals. The same way may be said to the relationship between nations. They should not be hostages of personal ambitions of politicians. You see, people are seeing that Nancy Pelosi was on its personal ambition, but it is considered that with the visit of the U.S. representative. So things are uh, now or at the new consideration of the relationship between China and US rather than taking the dick on Taiwan. So this is all about this information. Now moving towards the next one, and that is mapping India's democracy and independence day. Now there is a very beautiful article of Pulapre Balakrishnan, who is a teacher, a popular teacher of economics in Asoka University of Sonipat. In this article, he is considering on three points like India, democracy, and promised republic. He is taking some historical ground on this 75th Independence Day. He said the country must be judged by the extent to which it has advanced human development. Now, coming on his article, where we find that there is some discussion that is on the mode of the objective, or there is clear cut objectivity. There is something that is politically charged even, but there is one message for the people. When he is discussing about the India democracy and the promised republic on the 75th, coming on the coming 75th Independence Day, he says he's in this article we find that there is a complete journey, the India's journey since 1947, where he has gauged about the human development, and he focused human development on the growth of the economic development, on the growth of the equality, on the growth of the liberty, fraternity, and gender development. On the another hand, he also discussed the sensibility of the Indians, which was there in 1947 and mid in 1960s, and also there is after 75 years, that what are the changes, what are the growth. So he talks about democracy is not only about the protocols of the governance, but as much as about the outcomes that it produces. The word that it is not only the protocols of the governance, where he has given the hint that how public interest and the real public of the country is also responsible for the country, and it also talks about the outcomes and what does it produces. It is not only the physical production, it is the production in a whole, where he talks about as I said that the human development, and for the human development he said that economy is viewed as ecosystem for enabling human development, because he's the teacher of the economics, so he has focused about the economic development. Apart from that, he has also said that the empowering of the individual, where he said that the significance of the democracy is that it aims to empower the individual to lead the kind of life that he or she values. It means this is the complete freedom when you wants to lead your life under the rules and regulations. So that is the economy. So that is the democracy. In fact, he is putting India and leading towards the democracy, and talking about the human development in terms of the economy, and also some developments that are mentioned in 1947 on 15th August by Jawaharlal Nehru. He is quoting the statement that when Jawaharlal Nehru says that what is democracy and what is the coming India is all about. He said that to bring freedom and opportunity to the common man, to the peasants and workers of India, to fight and end poverty and ignorance and disease, to build up a prosperous, democratic, and progressive nation, and to create social, economic, and political institutions that will ensure justice and fullness of life to every man and woman. In this in his the endeavor, his that was the aim or the goal of Jawaharlal Nehru. But he is also probing that was it the reality when he talks about the distant goal of the opportunity. Then he found that Jawaharlal Nehru himself agreed that we can now see that the goal is far from having been attained. Why this happened? Because he has given some reason. First, there is a distant goal of opportunities, because opportunities are not equal for everyone. He has just took one example of the women are worse off than their men. They are less nourished, less educated, and have a representation in the institutions of governance far lower than their share of the population. जो शेयर है वुमेन का वो कम है. That he talks about the gender gap, he talks about the gender inequality that is there in the opportunity itself. So that's why Jawaharlal Nehru himself accepted that uh, the attainment of the goal is distant, it is not in the reality. And he is also giving another reason, that the regional differences uh, for the human development. As he talks about the human development, he's talking about the economical development, he's talking about the health issues and the disease and also the overall development. So he says if we talk about the development, the human development in terms of the India, then it is very lower. But he said that there is regional differences. He also gave the example of the China. He compares that what is the role of the China in human development and India. Then we can find this is less or the more. But he made a perspective that when we start to measure it on the basis of the regional region, then we find there is a lot of differences. He said the commonly remarked upon the terms is that south and the west do better and much to the rest of the country. अगर हम साउथ और वेस्ट की बात करते हैं तो पाते हैं कि बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हैं देन द रेस्ट ऑफ द कंट्री. इन्होंने एक जो बालाकृष्णन जी हैं, इन्होंने एक नीति आयोग 2021 का एक डेटा भी दिया हुआ है कि व्हेन इट फोकस्ड ऑन द बिहार, then we found that there is more than the 50% of the poverty, but in Kerala there is 1%. So regional differences are there. There are many instances where we find that there is socio-political and the economical differences that are there because of the region. Why does it happen? He also focused because he says there is lot of exposure, because of the exposure of the well-developed states. They are developed and they are developed because of the education, because of the exposure, because of the medical facilities. He has given number of the reason for that. Now he also talks about the subversion of the democracy. Why he said the subversion of the democracy? Because he knows the better the well politicians like the Nehru has the greater prescient, greater expectation, and he can see the future, in fact, that what is going to happen. So he is also talking about the emergency that happened because of the inequality of the games that were there, कि क्या प्लान किया गया था और क्या हो रहा है उसकी वजह से. You see that emergency was is not considered good. And on the other hand, he's also talking about the constitution's changes and many civil liberties that are violated. And after all, he's probing a question. Balakrishnan says that why these things happens, why the goal is not achieved, why we are still the promised republic, why we are in the electoral process. He says that after 75 years, we may have come to recognize a similar truth, about the democracy. We seem to have imagined that simply leaving things to our political representatives would come how would come somehow to deliver us a happy country. कहता कि जो डेमोक्रेसी की बात है, किसी भी नेशन की बात है, जो रिपब्लिक की बात है, वो केवल हम क्या करते हैं कि अपने पॉलिटिशियंस पे छोड़ दिए हैं. दिस इज द मेंटेलिटी ऑफ द नेशन that they are the leader and they will develop apart from taking the responsibility on your own hand, on your own soldiers. So he has given a multiple descriptions. Now recapping it, he talks about the India when it was before before 1947. He talks about the freedom, he talks about the development, he talks about the goal that was initiated in 1947. He talked about its difficulty to attain because of the multiple reasons that are there in the nation, like distance, goal and opportunities. There is regional differences, there is exposure, and there is subversion of the democracy. That was because of the loose or because of the loose system, and he also talks about the accountability of the people, and he also talked about the accountability of the democracy that is on the electoral basis. So that's all the discussion, and ultimately he talks about the human development, and that human development is the key word in the discussion. It ranges India, it ranges democracy that has multifolded things, it also ranges the republic that has multifolded things like economical aspect, social aspect, medical aspect, technological aspect. So that is all in this article. I hope that this will generate a good sense on this 75th coming 75th Independence Day. And that's all for today's discussion. Thank you so much for your time, and see you in next discussion. Stay connected.